$500,000, and the way it's written, it is a minimum of $500,000. It is per line. It is, and Ms. Ledger Hernandez, I'll give you 60 seconds, but I think it's time to move on. I just don't.
I truly appreciate your very careful consideration and review for the American people of this. As you know, I do have an amendment to strike the whole thing, and I think it would send a great message if you would actually say, I'm going to vote for this amendment. Allow it.
And this is why I didn't want to get into this debate. The problem is, if we could take it out and send it to the Senate and know that the gamesmanship wasn't going to be played over there and the government would get cut back on, I'd be glad to. But the bottom line is, if we amend this bill with anything at all, we risk extending the shutdown, air traffic controllers not being paid, law enforcement not being paid, our staffs here not being paid. And that's a risk that I don't trust.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I don't trust just the Democrats. I don't trust the system to work where we could fix it with what probably a supermajority of this committee thinks should be done and not delay the government coming back on. And with
So
that,
the other, I would only point out that it's not, if you would, I just wanted to finish. Will you give me 15 seconds?
yes.
So it says each violation, and so the violation isn't just each telephone, it's each time it's requested. So it could multiply much higher than that because it's by violation.
That is my read as well.
Yeah, we agree on that.
Madam Chair? Madam Chair? I just want to state for the record, it's another reason why the House and the Senate should be in session during a shutdown. Maybe this could have been avoided.
Thank you, Mr. McGovern. Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Griffith, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I, too, am very concerned about those sections. I will tell you, I've already made the decision that I will vote for this bill and not vote for any amendments because the shutdown needs to end. It's been going on too long. Too many of my people are hurting, and we got to get it done. There's some other issues in here, not as egregious, but at least it was done in the light of day with a vote. But the hemp issues, that was a fight between the gentlemen in the Senate from Kentucky, both of them fighting each other. I don't agree with the solution they came up with, but I'm voting for it because I've got too many people that need the government to open. And therefore, notwithstanding, we're going to hear some great amendments, I'm sure. But I'm not voting for any of them because we need to get this thing done, and then we can start negotiating on other things. Now, Mr. Cole, Mr. Chairman, you've said this a couple times. I want to underline it because it's exciting for me to hear it coming from the Appropriations Chair. Because one of the things, as now a longtime member of the Energy and Commerce Committee, that drives us crazy is that people want to airdrop. This didn't just happen. This happens when we're here in session. It didn't happen because people weren't here. It happens all the time between the House and the Senate on bills that come out of appropriations. And you haven't done it, to the best of my knowledge, but they create programs that are never authorized by the authorizing committees. And you're absolutely right. When it comes to the premium enhanced tax credits or the enhanced premium tax credits, that's the jurisdiction of Energy and Commerce, Ways and Means, and Ed and Workforce. They overlap. Different pieces of it belong to each of those. And of course, the bill that they keep talking about, that they claim took all this money away, that came out of the Budget Committee. That didn't come out of appropriations either, the reconciliation bill. And I just appreciate that you're recognizing that's not the proper jurisdiction. And before we had the shutdown, I wrote a whole column on how we could reach some kind of an agreement on a glide path. But I also pointed out in several, and I've had several columns where I've talked about this. I do a weekly column, that we have 20% on the enhanced premium tax credits. We have what is pretty darn clear, 20% shadow enrollees. Now, if you will bear with me, Mr. Chairman, tell me if you disagree with this. What we see is normally in an insurance plan, you have 15% of the enrollees don't use their insurance in a given year. That's been for decades, and some years it may go up 0.2 or down 0.2, but it ran around that 15%. With the enhanced premium tax credits, we see 35% not using it. And here's what I believe is happening, and I think most experts agree with this. You tell me if you have any disagreement. Jump in, Mr. Chairman, and tell me if you disagree. What happened, because it was an emergency piece of legislation during COVID, because they wanted to help people that were having a hard time, they didn't put in all the checks and balances. So you don't have to re-enroll. It's an automatic re-enrollment because it was only going to be a 5-year program. And what could happen, and the theory I use and the example, the hypothetical I always use is, if you live in North Florida and you happen to go to a grocery store or a mall and you get enrolled, and then 6 months, 8 months, 9 months later, you move to South Georgia and you go to the mall or the grocery store and you get enrolled, most citizens of the United States would think, well, I'm enrolled now in Georgia, so they've canceled my program in Florida. But that's not happening with the enhanced premium tax credits. And my frustration with this argument for the last 40 days has been, open up the government and we can figure this out, because as the Health Subcommittee Chair on Energy and Commerce, I don't want us to continue to waste 20% of our money that we're spending. It's billions of dollars. I don't want to continue to waste 20% of that money that doesn't go to help a single enrollee. It goes to the insurance companies, and they're getting the money. They don't know whether the people really exist or not either, because there's no way to check, and it keeps rolling on. If we do a 3-year extension without some way to check, or a 1-year extension, which our colleagues on the other side of the aisle have recommended to us, either a 1-year or a 3-year extension, we're going to continue that 20% waste. We're going to waste the taxpayer dollars. That doesn't mean I don't want to help people who are trying to struggle. And even for some of those, Kaiser Family Foundation estimates that 10% of the people are receiving these benefits are over the 400% poverty level, which means they're making $106,000 a year. And maybe in some of the rich districts in the country, that doesn't seem like much money. In my district, where the average household income is just over $50,000, we haven't quite reached 51 yet, that means they're making pretty good money, and yet we're not even looking at doing that. Now, I'm not saying we take that away 100% the first year. We've got to take a look at that. That's what needs to be negotiated. But that was never part of your bill. That was in my jurisdiction. Isn't that correct?
That is correct. And to the gentleman's point, just go back, a totally separate bill, but you'll remember toward the end of last year, we were working hard. A lot of our fellow Americans were hurting from hurricanes. We're doing a disaster relief bill. The Appropriations Committee did a little over 100 pages and spent about $100 billion, I think 110 because we added $10 billion for ag. That bill was 1,500 pages long when it hit the floor. None of us were consulted on the Appropriations Committee about this. And honestly, it had some stuff I probably would be for, like PBM reform, and it just didn't belong with us. And matter of fact, we caught a lot of grief on the floor from both sides of E&C, because what were you doing? We didn't. It blew up because people look at a bill that big and they go, "What in the hell is in 1,500 pages?" And again, my committee didn't have any. Now, in the end, what we passed was what the Appropriations Committee did, which was a little over 100 pages. But all the rest of that stuff was loaded on us. This is, so it's not like they even come and ask us. So I've had some pretty stern discussions with our leadership about this, but it's true on both sides, and it's true with other committees. I mean, other committees use us as the I don't recall anybody carrying an appropriations bill to help us out on E&C or Ways and Means or anyplace else.
Don't give us any ideas, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, so believe me. So I agree with the gentleman's point. I would prefer these things go to the committees that have the expertise, and they move the vehicles, not us. Not because it's a must-pass, we got a fun deal. If it's a good bill, and if it's bipartisan, like PBM reform, I guess was, from everything I heard, then why couldn't it trot out there on its own why did it have to be part of ours and confuse everybody about what we had in the bill that we'd had no hearings, no jurisdiction on, or anything? So that's an institutional problem, and I would say, I see it on both sides of the aisle.
Yep.
It's something that we're trying to stay away from. And
Well, and I appreciate you working on that, because as you know, and it's part of why my colleague, Mr. Scott, is frustrated with the way this place works, because we have rules and then we don't follow those rules. And if we follow the rules, I don't think we'd be in this spot, because my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are correct. We've dumped all kinds of things before in appropriations bills, but that doesn't mean it was right. And in this case, you gave us a bill that dealt with appropriations, kept us open for 7 or 8 weeks, and I submit to you, Mr. Chairman, I think at least on the part that was, I don't know about the part with Ways and Means and Ed and Workforce, but the part that was in Energy and Commerce, I think we could have hammered something out. But the number one concern that I have about just doing this blanket and claiming, oh, we're saving health care, is the 20% that's going to the insurance companies. It's not a question of, which side of the aisle you're on. We're giving 20% of the money that we're spending on the enhanced premium tax credits directly to the bottom line of insurance companies, because they don't know whether it's Joe Smith or Jane Doe or somebody else, but they know pretty much based on statistics over decades that there are 20% shadow enrollees. And if we don't fix that waste, we are not doing a service for the American people. We are not keeping track of the dollars. And it's a shame that it got wrapped up into this. It was fake from the beginning, in my opinion. We could have worked on it. We could have passed the CR. And while some people say it wasn't clean, and technically it had some other stuff in it, but none of it was stuff the Democrats opposed. Telemedicine, federal qualified health centers. I mean, there was some good stuff in there that belonged in an appropriations style bill. And it's all in here, is it not, Mr. Chairman? All of that stuff we had in the original CR is still in here.
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as far as those programs are concerned. And yet, because some folks wanted to make it all about health insurance, which was not what this bill was about, was it?
No, sir.
And didn't actually want to deal with resolving the issue in a responsible legislative manner, working through the proper committees, we've been shut down for 40 days. And that then ties my hands tonight. I can't vote for amendments that I might otherwise think are appropriate, and I can't vote for amendments that I think are not only appropriate, but are truly justified, not just marginally, but by 2/3. I cannot vote for them because I want to get this shutdown over. There are too many things being impacted in my district, and I'm sure in other districts too. I can only speak to my district, but having one of the most economically challenged districts in the country, I heard somebody say something about suffering. I'm just going to tell you, I looked it up, and that individual said we had to have a little suffering. They're like 29th. I'm 409th out of 435 on household income. I got enough suffering without the federal government adding to it. So I will be voting no on all the amendments, and yes to get this thing across the finish line.
But the gentleman yield,
I will
one
yield-
second.
I will yield to.
One second, which is this. You made a stat I want to make sure everybody understands. You talked about 15%, a number that you said was an historic number
It's over the decades. It's roughly.
as it relates to enrollees who don't file a claim, right?
That's
So you're
correct.
about 15%. That is for private plans, but that was also the number, give or take a percentage point, for Obamacare plans prior to the COVID subsidies, when they then bumped from 15 to now 35 to 40%. Is that correct?
That is my understanding, and the other thing that drives me crazy, I would say to the gentleman, is that everybody talks about these subsidies, and a lot of my folks are afraid that their basic Obamacare or ACA subsidies going away. That was never threatened. That was never in question. The only thing that's in question is the emergency program that was put in for a 5-year period that is the enhanced premium tax credit, not your basic ACA subsidies, the enhanced premium tax credit. With that, Madam Chair, I yield back.
Thank you. Mr. Jack, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairwoman. And as the last thing between this panel and the amendment panel, I recognize that I will be brief. But I will say just from the outset, first I want to commend my colleagues' comments, and I want to commend the chairman's testimony. I also want to note, and I'm proud that Congressman Langworthy noted that it is Veterans Day, and I want to note from the outset, we have 79 veterans serving in the House, Republicans and Democrats, some of whom are in the room. We thank you for your service, and we thank the millions of Americans who served in our uniform for your service on this important day. Chairman, in closing, if you could just tie everything together from this hearing, the vote tomorrow, it's a binary choice to open the government or to prolong the shutdown. And we've talked a lot about what this bill actually does, and we've heard the other side comments on what they think it does. I want to give you a chance to close out and remind everybody what this bill principally does tomorrow.
Well, thank you very much for the question, and I appreciate the attitude. And honestly, I won't say tonight's hearing made me miss the Rules Committee, but it does remind me how grateful I am to all of you on both sides of the aisle for what you do here. And I mean, that's true. Look, I think it is a pretty simple choice tomorrow. There are parts of every bill that I don't like. If I got to write everything, then I'd love everything in it. And if I didn't have to get things through the Senate, I'd probably, but basically this is about reopening the government. We got 3 bills that we broadly agree on. We don't agree on every single thing in them. There's certainly some things, but they were negotiated out mostly by the subcommittee chairs and ranking members. There were relatively few issues that went up to us. They're all either flat spending or slightly reduced. Those are 3 good bills, and in those 3 areas, they'll protect us from disruption of service for SNAP and WIC. They'll take care of our military construction. They'll make sure that the Capitol Hill police and our staffs and people get paid through September 30th. So that's actually a good start on the appropriations process. The CR buys us back the time and then a little bit more that I would argue we've wasted in the last several weeks. Gives us to January 30th. We'll try and negotiate another package of bills, maybe 2 or 3 more. I mean, that's something the 4 corners have to get together and decide, but we're ready to negotiate on all 12 bills, with 3 across the floor, all of them out of committee. We literally, once they're out of committee, we can negotiate. We know we didn't write the final version in the deal, and if you look at our bills, they're a lot different than sometimes characterized in the press. We're not as far apart from the Democrats or from the Senate as you might think. So we'll try and get those things done. We've got some really important bills there. Defense and labor aid, probably the 2 most important to get done. But this will give us the time to do that. I would say we've gone through this process, in my opinion. Others would have a different, because we're trying to deal with things have been dumped into the appropriations process that have nothing to do with it. I mean, we do not decide Medicaid. That is not our business or our wheelhouse. We do not decide the subsidy issues. Like everybody here, if you're on the relevant committee, then you're hands-on, and the rest of us have a vote when you produce a product and we go to the floor. So I'm going to have a vote on those things. They're dealt with. But you shouldn't be holding up. Neither side should. Both sides have done this over the years. So I don't, it's not like anybody's got clean hands here. But we've seen this enough. It doesn't work. You don't hold up the funding for the government to achieve an unrelated objective. We tried to do it with the repeal of Obamacare. It crashed and burned. Now, we were smart enough to get out of it in 16 days. I didn't think anybody would ever be dumb enough to go beyond 16 days. We're at 42 now. And then we tried to do it, really the administration tried to do it, over building the wall in 2018 and 19. Democrats tried to do it over DACA, didn't work. They're trying to do it now. Not going to work here either. This is just a bad strategy. Shutting down the government to achieve an unrelated objective is not likely to be successful. It has not been successful. If we pass this tomorrow, and it comes out of committee tonight, obviously you guys have the first decision, I think that hopefully puts another nail in the coffin, and we don't do this anymore. Let's just make the government run. The people that I care, they may care very much about what my friends care about on the insurance, but some of them undoubtedly do. Most of them just want to go, if I go to work, can I get paid? If I'm doing important work for the government, keeping airplanes flying or helping our guys train for drones or whatever. I just want to get paid. Or I've got a uniform on and I'm willing to go to really bad places for my country. I'd like to know my family at home is going to get a paycheck. That's really bad. This is the day-to-day functioning of the government. And that's the choice before us. And again, you can be for these other things. I still think Obamacare was a mistake. If it had never happened, I don't think we'd be in this mess on this insurance issue. But it did happen. It passed. It passed both houses. The President of the United States signed it. We tried to repeal it. We repealed it multiple times in the House. Never could get it Senate. Never could get a president when we had the Senate to get it done. We came close. Got to one vote in President Trump's first term, but we didn't get it done. But the point is, shutting down the government is just a bad thing. So I think we have a chance here to restore some regular order, get 3 good bills through, not perfect, but good, buy some time to get the rest, and then hopefully these other matters, which, again, the president has said he's willing to negotiate once the government's reopened. The majority leader and the speaker said, but it's not going to look exactly like it does now if it's a real negotiation. You have to remember, this subsidy wasn't negotiated in a bipartisan sense. It didn't have a single Republican vote. And again, my friends had the power to do that. They did it. Okay, fair enough. I'm not saying it was enacted by the rule or in some way contrary to the rule, but again, tomorrow's question to me, and I agree with a lot of the comments on various things here by both sides, is simply, I want to make sure that the people that go to work for the federal government get paid. I want to make sure that the government is open and functioning. I want to know when an American buys an airline ticket that that airline plane is likely to leave on time and travel safely and get there. I want people that are inspecting meat, not the most glamorous job in the world, so that my family can have a good Thanksgiving, are doing that job and getting paid to do it. This is just about operating the government and then giving us a chance to do it for the other 9 areas that we have to do. So again, I appreciate the work you guys do here, but to me, this is a binary choice, and it'll have some things in the bills that I don't like or I didn't agree with, or in one case, didn't know anything about until it was posted. Is what it is, but where I'm from, my folks want to go to work, want to do their job, and then want us to work out these other things in the appropriate way through the appropriate committees. They don't want government held hostage, and they'll get mad at me over something, but it won't be because I voted to shut the government down. I've never done that. I've never been in favor of it. I argued we were making a mistake when we've done it. I think my friends on the other side, and certainly in the other chamber, have made a mistake when they've tried to do it. And again, I just think we want to get the government up and running.
Well said. I appreciate that, Chairman. Madam Chairwoman, I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jack. I'm sorry, Ms. DeLauro.
I thought you might be sorry.
Thank you. This ends the first panel. I thank the chairman and the ranking member of the Appropriations Committee for being here for almost 3 hours, and I appreciate your